Hello there, and welcome to day 2 of making the mundane magical. The question today is, what does it mean to be a multidimensional being? It's not what does it mean to be a multidimensional being. What does it mean to be a co-creator of my reality, and how can I do that today? I'm skipping ahead, as usual. Being a co-creator of your reality means recognizing that the reality you're experiencing, so your life experience, is actually based on your perception. So essentially, most of us are living in the third dimensional matrix of fear. This third dimensional matrix is the one that you will hear about on the news. It's the one that people talk about when they're worrying about things and wondering about the future and thinking about the past. Essentially, we are not in the present. And the present is where we are co-creators of our reality. It is where we have the opportunity to switch up how we're seeing something in this moment, and therefore to have more power to experience life the way we want it to be, not the way we've been conditioned to expect that it is. So today, the way that this can work for you is there are essentially 2 states of being. One is living in fear, and the other is living in love. We have talked about the fact that seeing through eyes of love and loving what you see is how you start to train your consciousness to look for the opportunities to be a co-creator of your reality. And who we're co-creating with, we will deal with in the next few days. But essentially, what you can do today in every decision that you are contemplating is to ask the question, is the decision that I'm thinking of making here based on love or based on fear? Do I trust life, that life loves me and wants me to be happy? Or do I fear that life is against me, and therefore I need to do everything I can to protect myself from this perceived threat? More on the third dimensional matrix of fear. Essentially, this is just how we're controlled, okay? This is how we get to be compliant human beings that don't dare raise a question, raise an eyebrow, or demand things to be different, because we're frightened of exclusion. We're frightened of exclusion from our family and their beliefs. We're frightened of exclusion from our partnership. We're frightened of exclusion from our culture or our society or even our religion, if we dare to ask the questions that we have that might separate us. So essentially, the third dimension is caught up with survival. It's about the fact that we need to amass material possessions and money in order to feel safe. However, the irony is it doesn't matter how much you amass, you never feel safe. You always want more. There is an addiction here. There's an addiction to power, there is an addiction to control, and there is an addiction to amassing a lot of things in order to feel safe. But this is basically asking the world outside of us to make us feel safe, rather than cultivating a feeling of safety inside of us and seeing that projected in the world around us. So back to being a co-creator of your reality. If you are coming from fear, then you are seeing fear all around you. You're in a state of fight, flight, freeze most of the time. It doesn't take a lot to trigger you into a state where you feel like panicking. You feel like needing to control, dominate, or hide so that you feel safe. So if you think about fighting is attacking so that you're not attacked. Fright is getting a fright and you fleeing, fight, flight, freeze. Yeah, so fleeing from danger, so running, and freezing is essentially playing dead, not raising questions, and effectively just doing whatever you need to do to be accepted, which means denying how you truly feel. So today, as I said, your challenge is to look at the decisions that you're making, the conversations that you're having, the way that you are responding to your environment, and taking a moment to check in with yourself and asking the question, am I coming from love or am I coming from fear? And if I was coming from love in this instant, how would I approach this situation? If I trusted in the highest good of all, and if I saw the good in this person or this situation, how would I deal with it? If I knew that the good in me is respected, revered, witnessed, How does that play out? Do I speak out? Am I trying to protect myself by trying to dominate or trying to give my power away in order to be approved of? These are all questions that will help you, but I really want to move you out of your minds, okay, into your hearts. Essentially, this is all about dropping into the heart space, because the heart space is what allows you to move out of the third dimensional matrix into being a co-creator of your reality. Every time you choose from fear, you are choosing from the third dimension. The third dimension will keep you in your control paradigm. It will keep you in your conditioned response. And there's an interesting thing here about the uncomfortable comfort zone. Okay, so the ego, we all have this very negative association with what the ego actually is. All the ego is the part of you that is conditioned to be as you are, to keep going the programs that you inherited from family, mother, culture, society, religion. And when you actually start to access your heart, you can move out of that fear-based programming into recognizing that actually you've just learned to be a certain way in order to get approval, in order to get acceptance. And if you choose to come from love, if you choose to drop into the fact that actually the truth is life loves you, life wants you to be happy, life wants to give you what you want, and what it presumes you want is what you are focusing on. So life is essentially abundant. It will give you an abundance of whatever you focus on. So this idea that thoughts become things and what you focus on grows is a very important part of the lesson that is involved in being a co-creator of your reality. Now, I was asked a question, and that question was, what is Earth's ascension timeline? And effectively, Earth's ascension timeline is this shift from fear to love. Earth's ascension timeline is the timeline where instead of us living in a world where we're raping and pillaging the planet and humanity and the animals and the flora and the fauna in order to seek safety and dominance and to have power and control, because that is what makes us feel safe, we start to act with nature rather than against nature. We realize that we are not, as human beings, the dominators, the supreme beings that we think we are, that we are better than nature. We're actually one and the same. And so we learn to be in harmony, and we learn, instead of competing, to cooperate with the resources that are around us, to be a part of it. And the Earth Ascension timeline is essentially bringing paradise back to Earth. It's restoring Earth back into its original intention, which is that it would be a living library for all of the living creatures, all of the creatures that exist in our universe. And this would be a place where we would come as divine beings, as spiritual beings, so as energy beings, to experience what it's like to co-create in density, in physical form. So the idea is that when we're not in our human bodies and we're not embodying in a physical form, thoughts become things much easier. We can create with our imagination, and we essentially live in a virtual reality. When you come to a planet with gravity, with density, then we need to take that and move it into form. And moving it into form means that an idea comes along inspired, and then what we have to do is take physical actions to manifest that idea. And that is what we're all learning to do. As we come into our heart, we are learning to start to co-create from love and to create a planet, which is Earth's ascension timeline and paradigm, where everybody is loved, everybody is taken care of, every sentient being is respected. And now we have the question of mosquitoes and things that kill you on this planet and all the rest of it. And I have a personal theory that a lot of these bugs and a lot of these viruses and a lot of these animals and creatures that can cause tremendous harm. I'm not saying all of them, by the way, but I feel like this is part of how we have descended into darkness, that there have been forms that have developed on this planet that mirror that darkness. And when I say darkness, I mean the absence of love. So when something doesn't seem to have a purpose, You know, you could look at the difference between a wasp and a bee, for example. We know that bees make honey. We're not sure what the purpose of a wasp is. You could say that, you know, a wasp is a replica of a bee, but without a purpose. So you could refine this and say human beings can be automatrons that are basically computers, living computers that are designed to live out someone else's idea of what we should be, which is basically slaves. And we're all slaves. We're living on a prison planet at the moment. We don't have access to everything that we need unless we're born into a family that has those resources. So we are coming here to basically live and work for someone else's reward, for someone else's betterment. And when we think about the fact that you have sheep, the workforce is essentially sheep force. We go, we do what we're told, we get given a wage, and then what we do is we satisfy our lives with buying things in order to feel good about life and to feel safe. But really, we're not living for ourselves, we're not living free. So Earth's Ascension timeline is where we get to live free, where everybody has the same opportunity to co-create with love, with harmony with nature, and with the intention to not harm in any way, shape or form ourselves, each other or this planet. So if you think about being a divine human, what is a divine human? Well, a divine human is someone who recognizes that first and foremost they are a spiritual being having a human experience. We're not here having evolved out of being apes and basically having developed our intelligence, and therefore that's what makes us superior beings. Yes, sure, we might have evolved out of monkeys and out of apes, and we might also have evolved out of reptiles, but there's something else about us when we're switched on, when we're in our hearts, and that is that we are connected to Source. We can download and we can bring onto this planet a consciousness which has been brought forward by all the major masters in every religion as messages of how we can all be, but we've totally misunderstood it, and we've thought somehow we're lesser than that and we don't have the powers that these super beings have had. So every ascended master, whether we're talking about Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, Shiva, all of these beings came along to Earth, and all of these stories came along to remind us of our God self. And I will talk about this more in the future videos when we look at higher self and who we're co-creating with. But for now, I hope I've answered the question of what it means to be a co-creator of your reality. It means that all the time we are all co-creating, and we are either co-creating from a place of fear and an expectation of the world not being a safe place, or we are co-creating from a place of love, realizing that we are the ones shaping our reality. And it's not just us, of course, that everybody is shaping their reality, but the third dimensional matrix of fear is so compelling because so much of the planet has bought into it that we can end up believing that this is the truth. It's not the truth, it's just many people have bought into the story, and as a result of buying into the story, it's like what's trending on Twitter, okay? It's like it's what's most popular. Just because it's most popular doesn't mean that it's true. And I also don't want to offend wasps. I'm sure they have a purpose. I'm just trying to give you some idea of the fact that when this planet is in perfect balance, there is no need for attack. There is no need for harm. We emanate a vibration. This planet is meant to be a planet of choice and free will. But somewhere along the line, in us having free will, we decided to have the experience of turning away from God, turning away from Source, turning away from our higher self, all terms I'll go into a bit later, and to do it all on our own. And as we've done it all on our own, we've got lost, because the truth is we're not on our own. So we've seen what we do when we create from this place of separation. What's going on this planet right now is what happens when we feel separate from Source. Okay, so co-creating your reality means first and foremost recognizing that we're not separate from Source and that our true nature is love, not fear. Go with that. Let me know how you feel about this. Let me know what questions come up for you, and I will do my utmost to be able to answer those questions in the next few videos. And I will announce the winner as well of who won yesterday's little prize. And that is Alison, I believe. So I will post that with this video now. But I hope that you have a lovely day. I'd love to know how your co-creating is going. Every time you find yourself in a state of fear, just take a moment, stop. Bring your hands together at the heart, press your hands together in prayer pose, and take a moment and say, I am choosing to come from love in this moment. What would love do in this moment? And just remember that love doesn't mean that you are a doormat. It doesn't mean that you always surrender and you always step back. Sometimes love means setting a boundary. And remember that anger is a very right response to your boundary being pushed and not respected. We really think that negative emotions, I say negative, challenging emotions are not pleasant and we're not meant to feel them. Well, every emotion has a purpose, and it teaches us more about how we can align with love, and it can teach us more about our shadow and where we're not aligned with love and where our programming has made us believe the lie that is around us. It's not the truth. There is one love. You have a connection going through your core line, connecting you through the sun to the source of all that is, all the way back down through the center of the earth, all the way back around to the source of all that is. So another little bit that you can do as a micro what's the right word? Micro action is to look up what a torus is and to see if you can see an image of a torus, because we all have an energy field, and part of co-creating your reality is realizing that you are influencing your energy field through what's going on in this brain, what's going on in your heart, what's going on in your gut, what's going on in your expectation of reality, and all 50 trillion cells of your being. I think that's it. So choosing to move into love, that's a micro action. Every time that you are contemplating a reaction, a response, what would love do?